For this 10x idea, I want to diagnose the primary problems that I see in our current electoral and governmental process, and look at a possible solution. So let's first look at the symptoms, where we have the Democrats and Republicans in an escalated and increasing degree of deadlock and conflict amongst themselves. The fight is not how can we help the most Americans. The fight is how can we not buy into your agenda, and how can we look good to this base and this base. So it's a conflict of posturing, as opposed to there's no racing around to help homeless people in either party, but the conflict is within the party. We also have corruption, meaning government officer after government officer, whether it's tax fraud or doing the exact opposite of their stated positions, or sexual infidelity under a family ticket, whatever it is, there's an enormous amount of corruption. Lies, we're paying more attention as a public, and it's not hard to with Trump in office, but there's an enormous amount of lying in office. There's also dogma as a substitute for data and distinctions. And what I mean by that is we try and lay a very simple package that is not complex data oriented. It's not that we do intelligent scientific studies and say that, we took a random sample of 100 people and we gave the richest amongst them a tax break, and in this other one we gave the poorest amongst them a tax break, and 5 years later this is actually what happened with this group of 100 people. It's not that we do these studies, we announce these dogmas, and in many cases fight the data that conflicts with our announcement, because that's, for example, a study I've never seen. I've heard endless times the Republicans say that we need tax cuts for the wealthy and it'll trickle down. But I've never seen 100 people where you took the 5% who were most wealthy and gave them an extra money and didn't do anything for the other 100 people, and then everyone was richer. So these are actually studies that can be done. We also have enormous suffering and feelings of helplessness. Now, this is reflected with low voter turnout, meaning the typical person, myself included, has very little interest in participating in politics, for the simple reason that you're faced with bill after bill, candidate after candidate, that is not the candidate I want, that is not the bill I want. There's pros and cons of this souped up bill, which has all kinds of corporate fat in it, and there's conflict about this bill over here. It's not the bill I want. And so it's hard to say. It's very much like, do you want to invest with this person you can't stand and think you're going to lose money with, or do you want to invest with this person you can't stand and think you're going to lose money with? It's not a compelling proposition to rush out there and make time to make this tiny little difference in an ambivalent proposition. So these are the symptoms. The diagnosis that seems to correspond to this set of symptoms is, first of all, an uninformed, uneducated population. Now, this is a symptom of the complexity of of this centralized power of these enormous bills that no one has time to read, and the fact that there is so much cynicism about the way votes and bills can be purchased that there's very it's not fun to become educated. In many cases, the people who know the most about politics are the most cynical. Well, who wants to be more cynical? Who wants to spend hours and hours? So we have an uninformed population, which is a symptom of the fact that individuals are marginalized in the current system, number one. And number two, it's not heartwarming. It's not healing. It's not fun for just about anyone to wade through the various bills and find out who's getting rich on whose back in what subtle, weird turnaround, and who's got this shadow corporation going to benefit here. It's not fun. You just become more and more cynical about humanity. Money equals election equals purchased power is a key diagnosis, because when power effectively is purchased by money, then the vast majority of people will have less interest in participating, because this is one of the issues of the feeling of helplessness, is if you understand that you are in a system where the person who raises the most money is going to win, and you don't have millions or billions to invest in all the the various side advertising and PAC funding and all these different complications, one feels impotent. It's kind of like going to a vote where your vote doesn't matter. People who really feel that their votes matter want to vote, particularly if it can make a difference in things they care about. Americans, as a general rule, myself included, I don't feel that my vote matters enough. See, there's a cost-benefit equation, meaning, let's say my vote matters, and I'm 1/300 millionth. So there's a 1 in 300 million chance that my vote will tip things in a certain way. Either way it tips, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the candidates, and I'm not happy with their politics, and I'm not happy with their bill. So the idea of spending hours and hours to pick, do I want, in the Harry Potter series, do I want earwax gummy bears, or do I want snot-nosed gummy bears? I don't want either one, and I don't want to read up on the ingredients. I want chocolate. I want something good. And so we have a symptom of an uninformed population, because it takes effort to be informed. And if the more informed you are, the more impotent you feel, because, for one thing, you take all that time to be informed, you're not working as much. I'm self-employed. I could easily spend, just cut off, let's say, a month off of work every year to study the entire bill. Now, I have $30,000 less money, and I've learned, just how messed up things are. And I still have uncertainty, because it's very hard to anticipate all the unforeseen consequences. I look at Trump, and on the one hand, I think he's a disaster. On the other hand, there are unforeseen consequences to having such a disastrous president. And one of them is that people are more keen to take back power for their own lives. I mean, if you can give power away, Erich Fromm in Escape from Freedom, and if you look at the rise of Nazi Germany, one of the things you have to understand is that people don't want to be powerful. If they can possibly give their problems to somebody else to fix, and they'll do a halfway decent job, they'll do it. Escape from Freedom, Erich Fromm. There's an impetus to say, okay, Trump, solve all my problems with your rich knowledge and all this stuff. And that sounds good, because particularly when many of us are financially illiterate and in debt and we want an expert, right? Well, there is a benefit to understanding just how rotten the experts are, because people may start taking back some of their power. So I don't actually know. if you add up all the people that just get so disgusted with government, they start doing things for themselves. Because after Trump, if you can believe that, your politicians are working for you, you've got a little bit more blindness than I can muster. So there's unforeseen consequences. So sometimes someone who's this bad can be good for the country because it shatters a dangerous delusion that you can just give all your problems to someone else, and you can't. But it's easier to do that when you have someone who's articulate and honest and hardworking and really sincere in trying to solve all your problems and then fails. It's easier to believe that the next one will do it. So these are some of the symptoms of an uninformed or causes for an uninformed population, which ties right into money purchasing power. Money purchasing power leads to over-influence of rich middle-aged and rich older people, because the very old and the very young don't usually have any money. So as soon as you say that money equals power, you've disenfranchised the very young, you've disenfranchised the very old, and you've disenfranchised the majority that doesn't have enough money to donate to political power. And what you've got is this 10-15% of the population who is in a capitalist paradigm, meaning the people who have the most money in America are working within a paradigm that says that capital is more important than people. That's what capitalism is. It's not called peopleism, it's called capitalism. The goal being to turn $1 into $2, and $2 into $8, and $8 into $100,000. That's the goal. And the people who can manipulate bills in a way that will allow them to succeed at that game will win at that game. That has nothing to do with the well-being of human beings. It just means they're very successful at turning money into more money, often by hurting people. You have some poor person who's unemployed in your company who develops an asbestos thing. It's cheaper to hire an attorney to run out her money to say that it might not have been the asbestos that killed her. And so you spend $15,000 hiring an attorney to run that family into the ground to save a $100,000 lawsuit. Now the family is worse off than they were before, and you're up $85,000. That's capitalism. Putting money before people and winning at the money game. Well, as soon as you turn political power into who has the most money has the most political influence, and the people who have the most money are the ones most invested in the money game, turning money into money, it's a vicious sociopathic circle and cycle. And the people who witness people buying political influence to harm their own people under the sham of an election become less and less interested in voting. So we have consequences and symptoms. Low time consumption of data through sound bites in the news leads to a very important thing. Like, we're constantly told, your vote is really important. No. You've got to get out and vote so that we can pretend this is really a democracy. And yet when you have so much political policy being oriented to help very small demographics and hurting the overall country, you have more and more people struggling to make it, which means they're busier and busier, but they're still told they need to vote. So what do? They refer to body language over data. I kind of like that guy's smile. No, I have no idea whether he's lying through his teeth or not. I don't have time to do my own research. I'm uninformed. But yeah, that guy looks tall and handsome. I'll vote for him. He has a nice stately persona. No idea what he does with his private money. No idea whether NAFTA is good for my neighbor farmers or this. I have no idea about any of that. Looks good. I'll vote for him. Or our family votes for this dogma. So let's just vote for that. The emphasis of body language and sound bites, which then becomes a war of body language and sound traps. Politician gets into trouble. He gets a new haircut. He sends his wife to a beauty salon. They go out and what they're doing is they're deflecting from actual data with presentations of the deities to the American public. Luxury, smiles, good looks, whatever it is. What you want to be, the quote American dream, they just go to the hair salon. And that actually counters the data. Oh, you just found out you lost, you defrauded the government of $500 million in taxes. No problem. We've got a haircut for you. We've got a new car to distract. Let's talk about the nice dog at the White House. So you have this very predictable ripple effect. The more busy and unsatisfied the country is, the more they're working, the more we rely on sound bites, the less data there is. And so that's a diagnosis. Now, the medicine for these diagnoses is app-based power. Now, so let's look at the medicine. So what we're trying to heal is corruption, lies, lack of independent reporting, where you have even the news, because when the media splits down the side, news, it's very important to understand that TV companies are not in the news business. They are in the entertaining and money-making business, because we are in a capitalist paradigm where they are rated ultimately in our deification of values by how much money they make for their shareholders. And how much money they make for their shareholders is not based on objectively informing their population. It is based to pandering to the stereotypes and biases and comfort zones of their core listener base. And so Fox does not make more money for reporting objective news about Republican scams. It doesn't make more money. Now, there's a little bit of a conflict there, because if Fox is totally transparent and tells its people, we're not giving you news, we're giving you the facts, we are buying your attention so that you'll watch our ads so that we can make lots of money, and in order to get you to do that, what we're doing is we're making you feel better. And to do that, we pretend what we already know you want to hear is news, simply by filtering out and deflecting anything you don't want to hear, because we all know that you're Republican based and da-da-da-da-da. We know our survey. So we do surveys to see what you want to hear. And then we just don't report on stuff that you don't want to hear. And then you feel better and you tune in more, and we make more money. That's what we are in the business of doing. It's not news, it's making you feel better. See, telling someone that doesn't make them feel better. So what you have to do is you have to do that, but then package it as objective news. You have to convince people that their very biased, uninformed opinions are objectively, scientifically newsworthy, because that makes them feel great, because then they can be biased and uninformed, but feel highly intelligent. This is a great sale. It's much cheaper than education. In time and money. But the same is true on the other side. Let's just ignore this and ignore that. We know our base. So when the war is who's going to make the most money in shareholders, and you've got a divided country, it is intelligent for every media company to pander to its audience, which is happening more and more. It's happening, and it happens unconsciously with Google and Facebook. They just learn what you like to watch. If you pick on, if you click 80% Republican-leaning stories, and they say, here's your suggestions. They're everything that verify your position. It's not information. It's not perspective. It's not intelligent. It's bias making you happy so that you'll spend more money. That's the problem with capitalism as opposed to peopleism. This doesn't make sense for an informed population, but it does make sense for a profitable media company. Informed population, profitable media company. In a capitalist paradigm, it's very obvious what will win out: the capital. So we have, to medicate that, a free app that nobody can buy, that is funded by people with a maximum donation, and is completely transparent, can answer this issue. And so a lot of what I'm talking about is the function of an app that is actually not about making money. It is about losing money to help people. The opposite of healing everyone serving money is everyone serving people and spending money. It's medicinal. It's balancing. So app-based power, first of all, intimacy of values and opinions of every American is a core part of the app. So what does intimacy look like? It looks like you writing your own bills, basically. Now, in order to have it automated, you can create new distinctions, but there needs to be checkboxes. So, for example, let's take the abortion issue. I believe in abortion when someone has been sexually assaulted, when someone is less than 17 years old, when someone does not have the money to take care of a child, and when the sexual assaulter was a rapist who is not, there to be a father. In those instances, I believe in abortion. I do not believe in abortion when it's the second or third abortion, when the person is clearly using abortion as a substitute for contraceptives, when they've got plenty of money to raise a child, when they're married, There might be 100 distinctions, meaning that I don't think anyone, or the vast majority of people, relishes the idea of an abortion. So what's really at play here, meaning I don't know any women, I've never met any women that says, let me get pregnant because I'd really like to have an abortion. No, it is a solution, and it's a question of, is the solution worse than the problem? In the case of an unexpected child, it's not an ideal solution for anyone. But the issue about rights, about when I agree with it, about how much counseling someone has to go, see, these are distinctions. And what we might very well find is that there is almost no one. See, I say this, I dated a Catholic Republican who'd had an abortion, and she didn't want me to tell anyone. So it's, there's not, now she wouldn't go public with that, and she might even publicly vote against abortion, but she had one. You see, we don't have a platform for personal intimacy, transparency. This is this case where I would, regardless of my political position, I'd tell my sister to get an abortion because she's in high school and she was raped, and it's going to ruin her life, and she's not a good parent, And there's overpopulation on the planet as it is. I mean, this is no one's going to win with this happening. So I'd tell my sister to get an abortion here. On the other hand, what if there was a neighbor that's been trying to conceive, and the issue would not get to the sociopathic high school playground, and my sister would leave for a few months and my neighbors could get a child? Okay, well, in that case, you see, it's about distinctions and complexity. And nobody knows. There has never been a political party in human history that I'm aware of that has ever asked me my opinion. I may be asked, do I agree with abortion or not? It's not that simple. You see, in an app, you can have your 100 distinctions. You can put case studies and people can vote on a case study. You know, you can use those examples. Okay, 16 years old, drug addiction, raped by a drug seller, this is not a good scenario to bring a child into the world. Let's think of the child. You see, because we also assume that there's things that are not worse than death. But there's things a lot worse than death. And being raised by a crack-addicted mom, etc., and in this society, it's probably worse than death. In fact, a high percentage of those people are going to commit suicide because they'll agree that it's worse than death. So it's complex. So when you have intimacy, what I propose, and see, is to respond to the uninformed population with intimacy, because most of us don't know ourselves that well. We haven't thought about the exact examples. We're making these knee-jerk decisions. It's kind of like saying, do you like color or not? Do you want color or no? Well, yes, I'd like color, but I don't want red where I'm eating, and I don't want blue here, and I don't want this. So we need intimacy. And intimacy leads to an informed population. Because when you're asked, okay, so you believe in abortion when the girl is 16 and there's a drug addict and there's no parent and she's poor and she'd be humiliated in school and she's already struggling in school. So that doesn't seem like a good idea, right? But you don't believe in abortion when someone is 35 years old, they wanted a child, but they've just learned that their husband is disabled. Now they've lost their income. They don't like the population they would be giving their child up to adoption to. I mean, this is not a very healthy culture to raise a child in. So I wouldn't want my child going to a stranger with the American statistics of how healthy that child is going to be raised. It's not a life I would want for a child. So if I can't do a good job raising this child, and they're, a month old inside my belly, I'd probably think I'm doing that child a favor, by cutting that off. If there's a sudden accident and I realize I can't do this, I'm paralyzed this. So in that situation, you wouldn't vote for abortion. See, now we get to actually see one another and we get to learn why. Well, I wouldn't because of this, and you can share your reasons. Now you've got real complexity. You've actually got human beings as opposed to dogmas. And we might find that we're a lot closer than we think, as in the case of the Catholic Republican, I had an abortion. We're a lot closer than we think. Once we have intimacy of values and opinions, we have something very powerful. It might take us a day once, to clarify the exact distinctions when we would and wouldn't vote for something. And what exactly is our ideal? Well, in fact, our ideal is not one of these questions. You can add a question. You can add a distinction to the app. And then other people can say, yeah, that's me. I wanted that too. Once you have the ability to have distinctions that are tracked by an app, you've got another very powerful thing. Because now the app, with the help of a nonprofit organization, can help you see who's voted closest to what you want in the past. The app can tell you, okay, you are neither a Democrat or a Republican based on how they're running and the platform they're using, but 66% of the things that you've said are most important are going to be voted for by these people in the next election. So you've got a 66% benefit if you vote for this person, and 44% benefit if you vote for that person. So the app can inform you of their historical dating record. And so now we've got intimacy of values and opinion. We've got no money. The next thing we need is a national census. How much well-being is being experienced by every American today, this year, this month? Emotionally, mentally, socially, financially, logistically, in health. The different metrics of well-being at every age. And we can have a living profile of how many people are depressed today, how many people are depressed 10 out of 10 today, how many people are happy 6 out of 10 today, and we can actually see a living map that is updated as often as we want to see ourselves as a living body, as an organism, as a country, as a social organism. And I've never been asked this in my life. No one has ever given me a form. And the census is a little bit of a joke, because for all the millions they spend, this census is completely free. It doesn't take any cost for anyone at their own schedule and time to fill out this data. It's free. And you can fill it out as a 5-year-old. A parent can ask as soon as someone can talk, are you happy today, this, that, and the other, and fill it out. It can be metadata. So there's no parents bullying their children to not tell the truth, etc., because that's what bullying and abusive parents do. They don't want anyone interfering with their bullying and abuse, and so they start intimidating their children. Don't you dare make me look bad in the census and da-da-da-da-da. Make it metadata in acknowledgement of the level of abuse that goes on in our households today, and in an effort to get to the real picture rather than all the political spin people push on in positions of power. You can't ask how happy you are in your job if your job boss says they're going to look out, and if they don't look good in the census, they're going to fire you. So metadata. Fact-based news versus non-fact-based news on any story, where a nonprofit volunteer body basically gathers all the facts, the documents, etc., and puts them up in screenshot view so that people can say, 66% of the facts seem that we've been able to dig up a lie, and anyone else who has a fact can put it, and as long as it is verified as a fact, it becomes part of the statistic. Because a lot of these things are judgment calls with incomplete facts. So you're only able to find 3 facts out of a total of 34 facts. And these were the easiest things to find, so these were tampered with. But once the full 34 facts come in, you see the first 3 facts all pointed this way, the next 20 all point the other way. Well, people can make up their own decision looking at the analysis. This is all the data we know, and 66% of it seems to support this statement. That's all you can say for certain. And so we need a statistical, nuanced version of the truth, a truth that then can be revisited over time. Because it gets very confusing for people to say, well they said this was true in the New York Times. And then 2 years later they said it wasn't in the Post. It becomes more intelligent, and it encourages more literacy and information in the population when the stories you are interested in Like, I'm very interested in Mayor Bloomberg and what he said here and there because I was at that party and I really want to know. And he's in my history. Okay, go in. Look at the facts. Anyone can submit a fact. And the independent volunteers verify it by vote. They cannot be bought off because they are unpredictable, always changing, perhaps randomly selected to avoid, because that's the big trouble is these rich middle-aged business people that are used to buying votes are going to be outraged. They're going to try and hack the act. They're going to try and hack the app. They're going to try and, if there's any review board, bribe them, look good to them, give money to their charities, do this so that they can get their influence back. So one of the best ways to do that is randomize fact-checking. Because if the app will review, if you build that in, if you anticipate that kind of corruption and build it in, and you have randomized Americans, we're going to have random Americans chosen, 5 from each state, and they're not random selection, and they're going to check the facts, and that's it. It's pretty hard to buy that when it's quick. It's just too complicated to corrupt that system. So a corruption-proof technology, open sourced, where the app is hosted on multiple computers and it's open source so that other countries can borrow the system, so that any person can go in and look at all the code and what's being messed with. And so this is a very powerful platform of owning power as a population. The other very important thing that the app can do is track statements of truth so that every politician has a truth rating, because there's different distinctions. There are people that don't agree with your opinion, but that always tell the truth and believe in their opinion for good reasons. There are other people that agree with your opinion, or they say they do, but they always lie. There's other people that go with wherever people are going to vote. They have no agenda other than staying in power. And these patterns can be reviewed and presented effectively using an app algorithm, so that basically every single thing that is said in every single speech is tracked. And what we can track as a profile of people in power is one, volatility. Okay, you said this before the election, you said this after the election. Then next year you said this before the election. That's a fair amount of volatility. You think that's a great idea, now you think it's a terrible idea, now you think it's a great idea, now it's a terrible idea. That's volatility. You can track the volatility ranking of each politician. You can track the truthfulness of each politician. You can track which politician aligns with your nuanced views. Meaning, if you have the crudeness of today's politics, yes on abortion, no on abortion, and that's it, but your profile says that in 68% of the 100 options you would give someone the right to have an abortion, and in a small percentage you wouldn't, and then the others you're undecided, well, you have to go with the crudeness of yes or no. But this will also challenge politicians to get more nuanced in their positions, because I think every politician should be invited, and they'd be a pretty idiot, be a fool not to participate when a large percentage of the population is, to share their nuance. I'm for I would vote for my sister having an abortion if she was 16 years old, if she was addicted, if she was raped, and here. Or I wouldn't. Now, one of the good things about this level of nuanced complexity is you also, get a 360 vision, because if that politician has a daughter who's 16 and learns that her father, for political reasons, would say that he wouldn't let her have an abortion if she was raped, he may get punched in the face and have to actually take consequences and think, I'm thinking about real people here. These are not just miscellaneous votes and statistics. I'm thinking about real people. because I think every politician should be transparent in these nuances to the same degree as their population, because this will show a match. You know, you're reading through the profile, and as you click this, you get an instant image on the app. This Democrat and these two Republicans both agreed with you. Good to know. Come down to the next question. These two Republicans and this Democrat both agreed with you. Someone's starting to look pretty popular as someone to vote for, but they don't show up as agreeing with you on the next question, or the next question, or the next question. And so it's engaging because you start understanding the complexity of opinion and values. You can start empathizing, like, wow, I'll bet if I actually was raped, I would change my opinion on this. You know, and you realize we're human beings. We're not dogmas. We're human beings. This is a really important, part of the puzzle. So facts-based views, profiles of politicians in volatility, truthfulness, alignment, but also in effectiveness. Because you can have people that totally agree with you, that never get anything done, that always tell the truth, and you can have someone who's incredibly effective at getting things done and agrees with 60% of what you think, and you want to get some things done. And the 60% where they agree with you will be good for whatever it is that's important to you. So this is, an important profile that is built over time. And the other valuable thing with Scandal and an app like this is that anyone who has a scandal based on facts, can target the political person who participated in their scandal. And so you can look at the scandal rating of a given politician. And as part of that, I think it's an important distinction to know if a politician has ever paid someone for silence. Because if someone has a 0.1 scandal rating and someone else has a 0.9, meaning 9 times more scandal, but you learn that associated with the 0.1 rating, someone came forth who was paid a lot of money to be silent, you can assume, as we gather statistics, that there's probably 10 other people they've paid off. So then their actual rating isn't as strong. It may be a 1 technically, but high probability of more scandals coming to light over time, given that they pay lots of money to hush them up, versus another politician who will not pay any money, either because they're stingy or because they don't want to participate in obstruction of justice or whatever it is. So these are profiles of politicians, and I think private life is an important thing. The amount, where their money is spent, what their tax return. These are valuable things, because there are situations where I would rather vote for an honorable, hardworking, trustworthy, sincere individual who doesn't agree with me than I would rather vote for a slimeball who does agree with me. There's times where that's just what I want. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I want someone who's being sincere. I need to feel there's some sincerity in politics. And I trust you for that. I don't agree with you, but I want my vote to be for honesty. And I can say that. I mean, there have been times when I voted against my own views because I thought the politician was less corrupt. And I was voting for less corruption. I wasn't voting for a particular position. Well, that's a very important distinction. The motivation of the vote. I like his face. I like his level of corruption. I don't like his positions. That's a very important thing to be clear what Americans are actually voting on. And so fact-based news, so that we know what news is actually facts, based on the statistics of data, the profiles of politicians, more importantly, the profiles on human beings, the inability to buy, manipulate, or hijack the app. And I think very importantly, in the nuance of laws, this is the law, and this is what people would like the law to be. This is the law, and this is not a law people want. I think this is a very powerful thing to have a sense that 98% of Americans do not like this law. That 60% of Americans think this would be a way better law. Because once you have those nuanced expressions of the bills people would like, get rid of this, stop paying farmers to not grow crops, stop doing this, but do pay farmers to make their fields more organic, and don't pay them for not growing a crop, pay them for adding in manure and stopping using pesticides that run off into the waters. Do pay them for that. They get the same amount of money just doing something useful, not being paid to do nothing. That's what I would vote for. So people get to write these bills, and then people get to vote for them. And the final thing, once people have written popular bills, meaning you discover in Write Your Bill that 85% of all Americans, Democrat and Republican, all think this is a good bill. Well, then the last bit of fact checking, and a very, very important one, is the opportunity to compare the actual votes and writings of bills that the politicians with lobbyists are using to put in power and how they differ, and to highlight the divergent text, basically. Anytime a political bill, courtesy of the lobbyists who often write the bill, diverges from the intention and statement of what the majority of people would actually vote for as a bill, they can be seen and highlighted. This is a politician who will always take money to diverge from public view in order to get money, or for whatever it is. That's a very important bit of accountability to have over time. And there's one last piece that I think is a powerful part of this, and that is ordinary citizens who are not career politicians, who campaign, who work within the app to show their credentials, their history, to make a certain popular policy come into being. Now, what we're doing is we're creating a little bit of a workaround for the unsuccessful third party. Now, what I mean is, let's say that 86% of all Americans would vote for a particular environmental policy that doesn't quite fit into either party's public bills, in the Democrats or Republicans. Well, if either party does not adopt those platforms with accountable people, someone can actually run parallel with the president or parallel with another politician and gather enough of a vote, and then the politician who adopts that person and empowers them to do that bill and those policies would get that vote. So in other words, you compete with the two political parties for more intelligent bills than either of them are presenting. And you have a contract with the public in blockchain that they will be supported by the majority of people if they come on board with that party. And the person who will adopt that outside power structure in their power structure gets the votes of the people who have said that's a high priority for them. And in this way, you might have a crappy Republican president or a crappy Democratic president with an environmental secretary that is supported by 86% of the population and has their own nonpartisan agenda and gets that bill in place. And then done. A year later, 86% of people have a very good environmental bill. Next year, doesn't matter, is a crappy Republican president, a crappy Democratic president, you have economic measures put in place based on the best research. As the country ignores basically the existing political system that's bought with money, but educates themselves with the best objective data available on economic measures that are in their interest, and money does not have any more vote than no money. Now we have an engaged, informed population. And I think by the time we have 50 million Americans using a free app that can, in real time, they can be watching their favorite network, and in real time on the app, statistical fact-checking coming in by volunteers in and out of their party, saying tax returns don't support that. High red alert as it's happening. And they can dig in and make, this is an engaged, it's kind of politics 2.0. This is a platform that, if effectively decentralized in open sourced blockchain technology, with the level of discipline and randomization, see, because you have corruption as soon as you have regular, predictable nodes of power that influence fortunes. That's when you have corruptions. You've got someone's billion-dollar fortune hanging on 3 people who are going to make this vote behind closed doors, very likely to be corrupted in one way or another. But if you have 12 random Americans selected to fact-check this document, and then another this, that, and the other, and there's no political agenda. The app's algorithm is transparent and designed to reflect people. The people who challenge that kind of discipline and transparency in their various spins and defenses look like idiots to an informed population, because they are. They're fighting with their people and their truths. For what reason? Exactly why are you why do you think you're acting in anyone's interest? So this is a 10x idea that has the possibility of creating 50% more engagement with hundreds of percent more intelligence, with hundreds of percent more accountability, and a focus on the most important area of a country. How much well-being are you and you and you in your family feeling today? What's causing the pain? Because although I didn't touch on it, there is an extensive profile on well-being, on trauma, on sexual abuse, on the amount of corruption in police. When you can give metadata, a 6-year-old boy sees a police officer raping a girl, or letting someone pass on because she's flashed her boobs or whatever it is. This kind of stuff that goes on all the time, that will not make it through a centralized power structure. But when that can be captured and associated as metadata, when you don't have to have your parents harassed and be fired and stuff because you shared that information, the metadata patterns over time reveal a truer picture of reality than the official story. Because official stories, what we know from our history, is they're not about honesty and getting to the bottom of things. They are about making the people at the top of the power structure look good. And who the hell wants to spend millions of dollars, which is what these shams of reviews cost, to get a bullshitty whitewashed version you don't even believe? Who wants to do it? No one with any intelligence. But if you can get for free, 6 kids have seen this same cop do this and that and the other, cop bust, and it's free and it's in real time. Now kids, everyone feels a position of equal power. It's a healthier system. Thank you for your time.